So Prabhu has written over 30 books. He has written over 5,000 articles. He is the only author in the world who writes daily one article on Bhagavad Gita called Gita Daily. So you can go to gitadaily.com and read his articles. He has answered over 3,000 questions and answers, given thousands of lectures. He travels across the globe, and in a year he covers almost 100 cities and also few continents in the world. He keeps traveling. He is a very sought after speaker in ISKCON. He is also the part of a very important committee in ISKCON called Shastrik Advisory Committee, where he gives his services, and very intelligent person. He is also known as spiritual scientist. He has a website called spiritualscientist.com. So we request devotees to please also go and visit this. So without taking much time, we will just very quickly, very lovingly, with all our hearts raising our hand, welcome Prabhu by one time chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So today's topic is very interesting topic, and I would request everyone to please pay utmost attention, the focus on it. Please put your mobile on silent mode, and we would request everyone to be silent and focus here on the class. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So some of you will be getting copies of the book we are going to read from. This is Prayers Inspired by Bhagavad Gita. I'm also displaying this over here. So I'll be writing and drawing certain things. I think you may not be able to see it from there. If you want to come this side, so that you'll be able to see it more clearly. And so we will read through the book, those of you who want. At the end of the session, you can get a copy of the book if you like, otherwise you can return it. So let us begin. So in this book of the Bhagavad Gita prayers, what I have done is, I take the Gita is philosophical verses, but I have seen how we can take these verses and make them as inspiration for prayers. So if you see in each of these pages, so there is a beautiful deity of Krishna, and then there is a one sentence summary prayer, and then there is a verse, and I have translated the English poetry, and then there is a one page prayer. So like that, there are 122 prayers here based on the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. So I would like to read today from 1.14, that is, if you have the book, go to page 22. So if you like, you can repeat after me. My dear Lord, let me remember that my life story is a part of your story. Let's recite the words. Tatah shvetair hayair yukte mahati syandane stritau Madhava Pandavaschaiva Divyau Shankau Pradadmatu. Once more, let us try to recite this together, not responsibly but together. Tatah Shvetayate Yute Mahati Yandane Sikau Madhava Pandavaschaiva Divyau Shankau Pradadmatu. Once more, and last time. Tatah Shvetayate Yukte Mahati Yandane Sikau Madhava Pandavaschaiva Divyau Shankau Pradadmatu. So this is the poetic rendition of this verse. Then Krishna and Arjuna standing tall on their chariot, white steeds and all, blew their conches loud and bright, a sound that shook the field with might. This is Bhagavad Gita 1.14. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Dear Lord, please guide us all so that we can understand your plan for our lives and we can align ourselves accordingly. Hare Krishna. So grateful to be here today in Abu Dhabi with all of you. It's a beautiful setting, a nice altar over there, beautiful picture of Radha and Krishna and nice lighting, very soothing atmosphere in which we can discuss about Krishna. So I request different participants to read one paragraph and then we'll discuss based on that. So we're discussing based on 1.14. Who would like to read the first paragraph?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, please.
My dear Lord, you are always with me in the chariot of this body, just as you were with Arjuna on the battlefield.
Yes. So if we look at the Gita has a timely dimension to it and a timeless dimension to it. The timely means it happened at a particular time. So around 5,000 years ago, Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. And that time, at a particular place called Kurukshetra, Krishna and Arjuna were on the chariot. And then the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. That's the timely aspect. Now the timely aspect is important, but there is also the timeless aspect. The timeless aspect is that the Gita, so is that recording started over there?
Yeah.
In that?
Oh, no, that's because of light.
So the timeless aspect is, just like Arjuna was on a chariot, our body is also like a chariot. So the sharir is like a ratha. And in that, the soul is like Arjuna. And the super soul, the Paramatma, is like Krishna. So just as Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, like that the Lord inside the heart also wants to speak to us, also wants to guide us. So in that sense, the Gita is not just a book spoken at one particular time. It is a timeless message which applies to all of us even today. And from this perspective, let's look at the next paragraph now. Who would like to read the next paragraph? Yes, please.
Please, O Lord, let this beautiful, beatific vision of the human-divine partnership become the enduring image that resides and presides in my memory. Let this be the centerpiece of the story I tell myself internally as my life story unfolds externally with its inevitable ups and downs.
Yes. So, see, for us, when we go through life, our life is like a journey, and in the life journey, many things happen to us. Many incidents happen in our life. So some incidents could be positive, some incidents could be negative. And like this, life is filled with dualities. Now, while this is happening, various incidents happen. While these incidents are there, we don't see them simply as incidents. Our mind is constantly active. So, our broad topic today is, does God have a plan for my life? And spiritual, the devotional affirmation which we just started is that help me to see that my life story is a part of your story. So that is the theme which we're going to try to discuss. So when things happen to us in our life, broadly we think of our life story in terms of two things. What is done to us and what is done by us. So most of us can think about how somebody treated us unfairly, maybe somebody betrayed us, maybe somebody hurt us. So what was done to us? And when we think of what was done to us, often we feel bitter. How could this person do like this to me? And if we are really honest with ourselves, while others may have hurt us in our life and made a mess of our life, but often we also have made mistakes. We also have made bad choices. And thinking of those bad choices makes us insecure. So on one side, we may feel bitter about the way the world has treated us. And we may feel insecure based on what we have done. Maybe in our office there was some politics and we were expecting a promotion but somebody else got a promotion. And we feel bitter, why did this happen? Or maybe we had a choice that we could have chosen this project or that project. And we chose one particular project and the other project flourished. And this other project, the project we chose languished. That was a bad choice. Why did I mix the bad? Right? So like that, both of these basically create negativity within us. And often we think of our life story in this linear, one-dimensional terms. What is one-dimensional means? When I'm thinking of what is done by me and what is done to me. And this is certainly true. However, while we are looking at this, we don't look at life only in terms of incidents. We think of life in terms of stories. The story we tell ourselves. There's some incident that happens. Say for example, now almost everyone here is an Indian. So you come from India over here. And maybe when you first time come over here and then maybe there is some get together. There is some club, there is some office event, there is some social event. And you go there. And when you go there for the first time and you meet someone and you greet that person. And when you greet that person neglects you completely. Acts as if you don't even exist. Now, that's just one incident that person neglected us. But often, our mind doesn't see that incident only as an incident. We add meaning to that incident. Oh, maybe this person is such a rude person. Or maybe everybody here is like this. Or, so everybody here is rude. Or maybe I am worthless and that's why nobody will respect me. Nobody will care for me. So basically, whenever an incident happens, the incident is an isolated incident, but based on, say if I am here and somebody treats me negatively, somebody neglects me, then what happens is, we can see it. We don't see it only as one incident. Either we see it in terms of that person's backstory, this person is a rude person. Or we see it in terms of, okay, this person belongs to this particular group. Maybe people who have immigrated over here, all of them are quite arrogant, all of them are quite rude. So we see it in those terms. So all people here are rude. Or all people are arrogant, all people like this. Or we may see it in terms of our own backstory. Let me say that. Actually, I've always been disrespected by people. Nobody ever treated me nicely. So, what happens is, we add meaning to an incident. So, if I come for a talk, and if very few people are there, then I may start thinking, maybe I'm not a good speaker. And that's why people don't come for my talks. Or maybe I think people here are not spiritually interested. That's why they're not coming for a talk. Or I may think the organizer is incompetent. They didn't invite people. They did not organize properly. So what happens is, whenever any incident happens, in trying to make sense of the incident, we create a story around it. And this is natural. Now, children, we understand that they create stories. So now, yesterday was Christmas. So for many children, Christmas is less about Jesus and it's more about Santa Claus. Isn't it? And the idea is Santa Claus gives us some gifts. Now, we may say that children, okay, should we tell children Santa Claus is not real? It is your parents or somebody else who's actually giving the gifts. Well, in that age, it's not wrong to let children have some nice stories to believe in. And as they grow up, they will understand. So in children, such stories that they may believe in, they might just be just like indulgence. And we understand the stories are not really true. But what happens? We may outgrow the particular stories we might have believed in our childhood. But we all keep telling stories to ourselves. And those stories, they are about the nature of a particular person around us. They are the nature of the people in general, or the nature about myself. Broadly, these three things. And based on these kind of stories, we get a particular perception. So quite often, when we are emotionally upset by something, it is not just because of the incident. It is because of the story that is created by our mind around that incident. So basically, in an incident, there are two components to it. There is the objective component. There are the objective facts to the story. And then there are objective facts about what happened. So, and then there is the subjective story. So what happened and what it means. What happened and what it means. They are two different things. So if we go to the Mahabharata. Now in the Mahabharata, there were these two cousins. One of them was living in the kingdom. The other was living in the forest. So who was living in the kingdom? Duryodhana. Who was living in the forest? The Pandavas. And then the Pandavas' father passed away. And then the sages told Kunti that the forest is a dangerous place. You are a single mother. You cannot stay here alone. You have a family, you have an extended family, go back to the kingdom. Now, when they came back to the kingdom, so what happened, the incident, if you consider, was that the Pandavas returned. So now when the Pandavas returned, this was the objective incident that happened. Now, for Duryodhana, it meant something. So normally in royal families, there is a lot of concern that after the current head, there should be a successor. So the successor is called an heir. Have you heard this word heir? The next person is going to be the king, or the next person is the heir. Now generally the royal parents, the king, queen, they would be very concerned who will be the heir. You want to have a child to be the heir. But after they have the heir, then they are worried, what if something happens to the heir? And so then they have a spare. So There is the heir and then there is the spare. Now, the spare is in a very peculiar situation. So, it's like, unless something happens to the heir, the spare will never become the king. But normally, no good sibling will want that anything bad happen to my sibling. So, what happened? Duryodhan, while he was in the kingdom, he thought, I am the heir. I am going to the next king. Whether Pandu will have children or not, that was not sure. If Pandu had children, whether they would come back and claim the kingdom, that is also not sure. So, he thought he is the heir. Now, when the Pandavas came back, three things happened. See, in any family, if there's a new child that comes, then just the newness attracts attention. Who is this new child? And then the Pandavas were not only new, the Pandavas were also well behaved. Duryodhan, because he had grown up in royal family, he had servants at his beck and call, so he was a bit entitled, a bit arrogant, a bit rude. On the other hand, the Pandavas did not have any servants in the forest. They had to do their own work. And on top of that, there were sages whom they were expected to respect and serve. So the Pandavas were relatively polite. So, because of the newness and also because of the politeness of especially Yudhishthir, the attention naturally shifted to the Pandavas. And then on top of that, Duryodhan didn't really put much stock in very cultured behavior. He didn't really care for it. For him, this language was strength. And among his 100 brothers, he was the most powerful. But in his own domain, he found there was someone who challenged him. Who was that? Bhima. They would all play in the water, and one day when they were playing in the water, they would wrestle in the water. And Duryodhan came to wrestle with Bhima, and Bhima just dodged his wrestle and picked him up and nonchalantly just held him up and threw him into the water. Now Duryodhan had no ill intentions. Sorry, Bhima had no ill intentions, but Duryodhan couldn't believe it. Nobody had dared treat him like this. He was the eldest brother, he was always respected. So, what happened? The Pandavas returned, that was just the objective fact. But the subjective fact was, Duryodhan's side thing is, Pandavas are a threat to me. So this is the subjective story. Now, throughout the Kurukshetra war, or the whole Mahabharata story, the Pandavas never said that we want the entire kingdom and Duryodhan should have nothing at all. They never even threatened Duryodhan in terms of wanting to take away everything from him. But Duryodhan felt it was a threat. So there's an incident and there's a perception of the incident. Duryodhan started thinking that these are not just threats for me. They are threats that will ruin my life. See, there is a big difference between being rivals and being enemies. Can anyone say what is the difference between rivals and enemies?
The personal element attached to it.
Personal.
Personal vendetta attached to it.
Vendetta. Vendetta is there with whom?
With the enemies.
With enemies. And what is rivalry?
Rivalry is more of a competition.
Competition.
It's more objective in this. What is attached?
Competitor. So when there are rivals, see, both of them are seeking one goal. Two students, they want to come first in the class. So there is some external goal or some particular objective which both are seeking. And in that sense, it's not that they necessarily bear ill will for the other person. I want to be better than you so that I can achieve that. That's rivalry. But enmity is, the goal is not to achieve something else, the goal is to destroy the other person. So, now rivalry is a fact of life. As students in school, there will be rivalry, maybe sports players, there might be rivalry. So, rivalry cannot be avoided. But when rivalry goes to the level of enmity, that becomes very dangerous. So, how did Duryodhan see the relationship between him and the Pandavas? Rivalry or enmity?
Enmity.
Yeah, he saw it as enmity. So now all this was a story he was telling himself. So what happens? Often the story we tell ourselves affects us much more. And our actions are resulting not so much from the incident that has happened, but from the story we have told ourselves. So for example, if we are disrespected. Now, if we are disrespected, that person intentionally neglected me, intentionally disrespected me, and therefore I will look for an opportunity. I will have a revenge fantasy. In public, in a most visible moment, I will disrespect and destroy that person. So this way, when we for us, if you consider, the objective facts are what are actually more important. But the subjective story becomes much, much more important for us. And often when we say don't react to a situation, respond to the situation. So what happens is, if the subjective story becomes the basis for our actions, then here we end up reacting. When we look at the objective facts, that is when we respond. So yes, it is possible that sometimes somebody may be threatening us. So I was in America, and normally, say if I'm giving a talk, and there are some children, some small babies cry. Now if the babies cry, that's a disturbance. Now normally the babies cry for a few moments and the mother pacifies the baby, and then the class goes on. But if a baby starts crying, and when the baby is crying, I start yelling at the mother. Now, what kind of mother are you? Can you control your baby? If you can't control your child when the child is a baby, what is going to happen when the child becomes a teenager and adult? You are going to ruin your child like this. You are a terrible mother. If I start speaking like that, what is going to happen? At the end of the class, no matter how good my class was, the only thing that audience will remember is how I yelled at that mother. So now, at an objective level, there is a small disturbance. But what happens is, if I start seeing that, I create a story around it. That story is that whoever's child is crying, that parent is a bad parent. Now we say, that's an outrageous story. Why are you creating a story like that? So sometimes the objective fact is small, but the subjective story becomes very big. So sometimes the objective fact itself might be very big. I was in one city in America, and I was doing a program, and there was a kid about 3-4 years old. He was constantly running around, and nobody was doing anything. And that kid came right next to me, and I was writing something, just took my pen from me. And he said he wanted to write something. And I looked at the organizer, and I was expecting the organizer would do something. The organizer just shook his head. So I decided, okay. I also did not do anything. Then finally the kid went around and he went away. And then the class got over. And I asked the organizer, what was going on over here? He said that that kid had come with his mother. He said that mother, that lady, she had come first time for our program. And this particular program happened in a bit of what is in America they call a seedy neighborhood. Seedy means it's like a little criminal neighborhood, a tough neighborhood. And he said that woman who had come, she was the girlfriend of the local gang leader. And nobody wanted to mess with her. So now the thing is, we could say a child disturbing is a big incident. But sometimes when we react to it, the incident can become much bigger. So there is an objective fact and there is a subjective story. So in general, it is important for us to be able to separate the two. What happened and what it means. So to the extent we come to Sattva-guna, we come to the mode of goodness, to that extent we can separate the two. So when Arjuna came on the battlefield, now he came ready to fight. So for Arjuna, what happened if we consider the same point of the objective facts and subjective story. So Arjuna on the battlefield. if we consider. So the fact was that he had to fight against the Kauravas. Now for him, what was most hurtful was that he had to fight against Bhishma and Drona. Bhishma Drona Pramuktaha Sarvesham Cha Mahikshitam. These are the prominent warriors who had to fight against. Now, at an objective level, this was a reality. And Arjuna also knew about it. But on the battlefield, when he came and he saw them ready to fight, one part of him was hoping that maybe this fight will be avoided. He had fought with them at Virat before, but at that time he had no intention of killing them. He just wanted to show his power and demonstrate to them that the Pandavas are not weaklings. In geopolitics there is this thing called deterrence. Deterrence means that if the other side has sufficient power, then knowing that the other side is powerful, the attacking side becomes peaceful. Doesn't attack too much. So he didn't have any intention of killing them. But here on Kurukshetra, one side was not going to go back alive. So now for Arjuna, Bhishma and Drona were not just elders. These were the elders from whom he had learned archery. These were the elders for whose pleasure he had learned archery. And these were the same elders that he now had to kill with that very same archery. And so on seeing this, Arjuna's mind started telling him a story. I am a terrible person. I am a terrible person that because of greed for kingdom, just for a kingdom, I am ready to kill my own elders, my own dynasty. What kind of person am I? So now some people say that, Arjuna just got an attack of nerves. Like sometimes now in the Ukraine and Russia there's a war happening, and the government sometimes conscripts people. Conscript means forcibly they enlist people even if they don't want to join. And when they're enlisted, they go into the war field and they never even held a gun before. And when they see the opposing army, they might get scared. So that's understandable sometimes somebody might get scared. But was it like that for Arjuna? Not at all. Not once does Arjuna express fear of his own death. Arjuna's fear, he has fear, but the fear is of doing the wrong thing. So he said, I'm a terrible person that for the sake of a kingdom, I'm ready to cause the destruction of my own dynasty. So it was not this that paralyzed Arjuna. It was not the incident of fighting against Bhishma. That was not the problem for Arjuna. The problem was thinking that I am such a terrible, greedy person. He said, if you don't fight, Duryodhana will fight. He said, Duryodhana is greedy, but I don't want to stoop to his level. That was what impacted him. So at one level, there are stories which our mind is telling us. And often those stories overwhelm us. So to the extent we come to Sattva Guna, we come to the mode of goodness, we start identifying the stories. If we are Rajoguna or Tamoguna, the story just comes upon us so quickly that we get overwhelmed by it. We can't even notice the story is coming. And then that's how we get very emotionally affected. So, life is always filled with ups and downs. Kabhi khushi, kabhi gum. But what happens? When we are Rajoguna, when good things happen, we go way up. When bad things happen, we go way down. And you have probably met people sometimes, but they are so moody that each day when you meet them, you don't know which person you are going to meet. Am I going to meet the cheerful person today? Or am I going to meet the resentful, bitter, negative person today? So this is the characters of Rajoguna. So every good thing happens, the mind spins a majestic good story. Your boss praises you once and you say, oh, this is the best job in the world. By doing this job, I'm going to become the next billionaire. and the boss speaks one negative word. Oh, I'm going to get fired. I'm fired. I'm going to be penniless. I'll become homeless. I will just be helpless completely. So like that, our mind stories become very powerful. This is Rajoguda. And in Tamoguda, what happens? Something different happens. In Tamoguda, it just keeps going down and down. If something bad happens, the mind spins a negative story. If something good happens, the mind says, okay, now something good has happened, now something bad is going to happen. And then even the good thing happens, it only increases the anxiety that what bad thing is going to happen. So, that way, the person is never even peaceful, always fearful. So these stories are constantly affecting us. And to some extent, it's important that we be able to identify and distance ourselves. This is the incident and this is the story. But the important thing is that we cannot stop the mind from creating stories. That's just what the mind does. And we also want to make sense of our life. We also want to find some meaning in what is happening in our life. And that's why the process of spiritual growth is not just about stopping the stories of the mind, but it is changing the stories. So let's look at next part now. Who would like to read the third paragraph? Yes, please.
The world outside and the mind inside tell me many stories. Stories in which sometimes I am a winner and sometimes I am a loser. These stories are always centered on either what is done to me or what is done by me. But both what is done to me and what is done by me are meant to be a part of your magnificent and benevolent plan for my ultimate welfare and indeed for everyone's ultimate welfare.
Yes. So, one of the things, so in some ways, spiritual growth involves two things. There is subtraction and there is addition. So subtraction and addition. Subtraction is we subtract the mind stories. The mind is creating stories, and often those stories are all about doom and gloom. So when we say control the mind, what does it mean? That the incident has happened, and from that incident the mind creates a whole, it goes on a spiral of imagination. So try to stop that. So in that sense, at one level spiritual growth involves subtraction. We try to reduce, regulate the mind stories. Now the other side is, the addition is, we add Krishna's story. So what does Krishna's story mean? That if you consider at the end of the Bhagavad Gita and at the start of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna and Arjuna were in the same situation. Arjuna still had to fight that war which he had to fight at the start of the Gita. He had to fight at the end of the Gita. The situation itself did not change. But what happened was that we talk about the fact of the story. Fact is, fight Bhishma and Drona. Now the story, this was the fact. The story that the Bhagavad Gita told Krishna is that this is a part of my plan for the world's welfare. Dharma samsthapanataya sambhavami yuge yuge. Krishna said that you are not fighting this war just to win a kingdom. You are not fighting this just against Bhishma and Drona. Actually, you are fighting this against Duryodhan. And Duryodhan is adharma personified. There are always predatory men who may try to violate women. But Duryodhan tried to do something like this in public, in the royal assembly. So, it is, normally when somebody does something like this, they will do it in some dark alley with no witnesses. They have some fear of the law. But if somebody does it in public, if they have no fear of the law has fear of them. And Duryodhan was doing it not just in public, but he was doing it in the assembly where justice is to be given. So it was not even that the law had fear of him. He thought, I am the law. Whatever I want, that's what is going to happen. At least Duryodhan, even when the Pandavas were in exile, he knew that the Pandavas were going to come back. And that's why he did not give in to his baser instincts. But if he knew there was no threat of the Pandavas, Duryodhan would have done horrendous things. And such a person had to be stopped. So Krishna gave Arjuna a bigger, better story. You're not fighting this out of greed for a kingdom. You're fighting this war to establish dharma in the world. And this new story that Arjuna got, that inspired him to fight. That same Arjuna who had put aside his bow saying, I can't fight. By the end of the Gita, he became ready to fight. So that was because the story was changed. Now the important thing is that this applies not only to Arjuna, it also applies to all of us. Mamai vamsho jiva loke jiva bhutaha sanatana. Krishna says that each one of us is a part of him. So now, see, there is philosophy. Philosophy is that I am a part of Krishna. Mamai vamsho jiva loke. I am a part of Krishna and I am a part of Krishna always. Sanatana. Now, what is the psychological implication of this? Philosophy is like, this is a spiritual truth, it's a fact. But what is the story? So, we have the fact, the spiritual fact, you could say. But what is the psychological implication? What is the story around it? The story is that I will have a part in Krishna's plan. If I am a part of Krishna, then I will have a part in Krishna's plan. And I will have a part in Krishna's plan always. Sanatana. It's like if somebody is a part of the Indian cricket team. Then, if they are a part of the Indian cricket team, then they have a part in the Indian cricket team. The part could be as an opening batsman, as a middle order batsman, as a pinch hitter, as a sheet anchor. It could be a wicket keeper, a medium pace bowler, a fast bowler, whatever. They have a part. So, now of course, from the Indian cricket team, somebody might be dropped. But Krishna is saying, you will never be dropped from my team. Sanatana. So, each one of us, we may be in a particular family, we may be in a particular country, in a particular community. All those are truths. But the bigger truth is that we are parts of Krishna. And we always have parts in Krishna's plan. So each one of us, if I'm here, I'm a part of a family, I'm a part of a community, I'm a part of a country. All these are true. But beyond that, aham sarvasya prabhavo, mattaha sarvam pravartate. The biggest whole is Krishna. Krishna is the larger collective that contains all collectives. And sometimes we may be part of one country and we may be deported from that country and we are no longer a part of that country. So all these smaller collectives that we are a part of, we might be a part today, we might not be a part tomorrow. Today we are working in a particular company and tomorrow we will not be working in that company. But we will always be a part of Krishna's team. And that bigger picture gives us a sense of security. Let's look at the next paragraph. Will I read?
Let this remembrance of your merciful integration of my life story into your plan be the guiding and guarding light for all my decisions. Let it be the guiding factor that pushes me forward, even through difficult situations. Let it also be the guarding factor that keeps me away from knee-jerking reactions that take me away from you.
Yes. So basically, if we consider that I'm here on the journey of life. So at one level, our journey is going to move in a particular way. So we all have a physical body, and we may become wealthier, we may become wiser, but as we're all going to grow old, and we're going to shed our body. So at the level of the body is going to fall. At the same time, we are also souls, and our consciousness, the soul's consciousness can keep rising. So, in that sense, our life story works at different levels. So, this is not difficult to understand. Like somebody might be professionally very successful, they are rising in their business career, but maybe their home life is a wreck. And somebody might be doing very well financially, but maybe their health is getting ruined. See, we have different dimensions to our life. So, at one level, we are often caught up in the story of our life at the external material level. How much is my bank balance? How much is my respect in society? Nowadays, for teenagers and kids especially, how much is my social media following? So that becomes extremely important. So often, when we look at our life story, we see it from a particular perspective. And that's not unimportant, but that's not the most important thing. That there is a bigger plan and a bigger story for the life of each one of us. And I'll talk about two main points to understand this bigger story. And then I will conclude with one takeaway for us practically. I said bhakti involves subtraction. Subtraction means that, oh, our mind is telling some story, stop it. Don't go into that fantasizing, doomsday. Nowadays there's social media scrolling, and there's a new word called doom scrolling. Doom scrolling means what? This bad thing happened here, and that bad thing happened here, that bad thing happened here, that bad thing happened there. Oh, the whole world is such a terrible place. The whole world is going to go to hell. And thinking like this, our own mind takes us to hell. We become utterly miserable. So we want to, that subtraction we want to do. Now I want to talk about the addition. So for each one of us, whatever is happening, there is at a particular level, say somebody may treat us badly. So somebody treats us badly. This is true at one level, but that is not the only truth. Above us is Krishna. Maya adhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacham. Krishna says, everything happens under my supervision. So, even if that person is doing something bad, Krishna is acting through that person. Now, that does not mean Krishna wanted that person to do something bad. But what it means is that Krishna is acting through that person and drawing something good out of it, taking us towards something good. So here, if I only see my life in terms of, oh, this person did something so terrible to me and that person did something so terrible to me, that's a very limited vision. But what we see is, yes, this person may have treated me badly, but there is something, some opportunity over it. There is something bigger going on over it. So let me take a couple of examples to illustrate this point, that this bigger picture exists. Now, if you see, for the Pandavas, they were virtuous people, they were dharmic, and they were also devoted people, they were bhaktas. And still, bad things did happen to them. Duryodhana often did terrible things to them. But we will see, through each terrible thing that happened to them, something good came out of it. Duryodhana tried to poison the Pandavas, poison Bhima specifically, and the result of that was Bhima actually got some celestial nectar and he became much stronger. The Kauravas tried to burn the Pandavas escaped from there. And then eventually they went to Draupadi's Swayamvar and they won the hand of Draupadi. And then they became much more powerful. Because now they were not just orphans with just a single mother. Now they were the son-in-law of a powerful rival king. So now when the Pandavas were in the forest, they did not necessarily know that this is we are going to become relatives of Drupada and then we are going to gain some power. There was that dark period when they didn't know what was going to happen. And it is not that now, yes, we know that Draupadi was being dishonored. At that time Krishna came personally. Now of course Krishna did not come personally. Krishna just came as an endless garment. That was a miraculous intervention. But it is not that Krishna intervened miraculously all the times. So in the case of the Pandavas when they were in the forest, they were just living like fugitives, hiding. And they didn't know what's going to come in the future. But they just heard some discussion among some brahmanas that Drupada is going to perform the Swayamvar for Draupadi, and there will be a lot of charity given over there. So you brahmanas, you can also go there. Yes. They heard it and they took that opportunity. So now what happens is the Pandavas could have become very hopeless and bitter or negative. Who is going to help us in this world? The Kuru kingdom was a very powerful kingdom. And if they are out to destroy us, then who is going to help us? They didn't think like that. They waited. Whatever opportunity came, they took that opportunity. So the idea is that we are not meant to deny the negative realities of life. But from those negative realities, our mind starts creating bigger negative stories. But instead of that, what we say is that there is, through the negative, Krishna is working on some positive purpose. So what is that positive purpose? That sometimes it may require a time for us to find that out. Some of you may know that I need crutches for walking. That I got polio when I was about 1. So when I was staying in a small town in Maharashtra, my mother took me to a nearby clinic to get the polio vaccine. And in those times, India was not so developed, and sometimes there would be power outage. So the clinic had a power outage the previous night. And because of that, the fridge in which the vaccine had been kept had got heated up. Now, neither the attendant nor the physician noticed that. And because of the extra heat, the vaccines in the germs in the vaccine multiplied. And when I was given the vaccine, instead of preventing polio, it ended up causing polio. So now I was just learning to walk and I fell down and I could never walk normally thereafter. I don't remember any of this. But my first memory of this, when I was about 2.5 or 3, and a distant relative had come to our home, and she was consoling my mother, saying, "It's so sad, your son got polio." And I remember my mother's voice, very calm, clear, confident. He said, "Whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually." Now, I don't know why she said that, whether it was based on some observation of some intellectual ability I had, or whether it was her hope, it was her prayer, it was her blessing, whatever it was. But somehow that stayed with me. And as I grew up, I did notice that I was quite good at studies. I could remember things quickly, I could articulate things clearly, I could analyze things well. So slowly I developed myself intellectually. And now, the fact that I had a physical handicap is a reality. So we can't deny that reality. But when I travel across the world, sometimes I'm invited to speak at places where people with special needs, they come together. And some of those stories are enormously inspiring. How people rise above adversity. It's amazing. But far more stories are of people who are filled with resentment. Something happened to them. Maybe they had an accident, maybe they lost a leg, or they lost an eye, or they lost a hand. They're all terrible incidents. But they happened maybe 1 year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Those things happened, but they're replaying those stories. Why did this happen to me? Life is so unfair to me. I'm ruined because of this. This person ruined me, or that happened to me. So the fact is the fact. But from that fact, the story that comes up. So what happens is, all of us, life will treat us unfairly sometime or the other. Life will victimize us. But there is victimization as an incident. And there is a story where we think of ourselves as a victim. So victimization. Victimization means what? that we are powerless in a particular situation and we are hurt badly by something or something. Now, victimization, that can very well be a fact. Somebody who we trust may betray us. We invested some money in some business and then that business just goes down. We may feel victimized. But the victim narrative, that I am a victim, that is a story. And now, if we let that story go on in our mind, throughout our life we will be like it. So, now Duryodhana lived in royalty, he lived in prosperity. But he felt life is so terrible to me. If only my father had not been blind, I would have been the king. If only Yudhishthira had not come back, I would have been the king. And he kept creating that story. Now, what happens when we start thinking about ourselves as victims, either in Tamoguna, we just go into depression. Or in Rajoguna, we go into aggression. So, where did Duryodhana go? Aggression. So some people go into aggression, some people go into depression. So when they go into, from the victim, when we go into aggression, then we end up becoming villains. That means something bad was done to me, so I will do something bad, worse to somebody else. But we don't have to go in that direction. A bad thing happened, it is true. You don't have to deny that. But that is not the final truth. That is one part of the truth. And Krishna can bring good even out of the bad. So, when Srila Prabhupada was trying to share Krishna Bhakti, for almost 30-40 years he was trying in India. And nothing was working. Now Prabhupada was trying to work to share Krishna Bhakti. He wrote books in which he talked about the glory of cows and the importance of protecting cows. And he was distributing the magazine back to Godhead, and a cow came and hit him. And he was knocked down. And the crowded city of Delhi, in the heavy, huge heat at that time, and he was like, why am I doing all this? What is this happening to me? What is the point of doing all this? So Prabhupada was trying, and nothing was working. He tried to start a temple in Jhansi, and the people who were supporting him, those people only turned against him. Prabhupada could have said, no, if the people I'm trying to work for, they are not helpful, they are not appreciative, why should I do it? Somehow Prabhupada managed to come to America, and in America he came to the Bowery and there, the Bowery side, and then there was one American young man, David. He seemed very interested. He said, Swamiji, I want to become your disciple. And Prabhupada was very hopeful. He wrote to some of the Indian well-wishers saying that he may become the first American Vaishnava. And then this David Allen, he used to take drugs before. He had given up drugs, but he ended up having a relapse. And after taking drugs, he just went crazy. He came to attack Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was a 70-year-old elderly person. He said to leave immediately. And he was on the streets like other homeless people who were there. It was not just a physical threat at that time, it was the emotional attack. Now, with these people whom I am trying to share Krishna Bhakti with, will they ever change? Will they even actually become devotees, or if they turn against me, what is the point of even trying? So it could have been devastating. But Prabhupada saw it. Through all this is Krishna's plan. So, see, devotion that is not tested, it cannot be trusted. Devotion that is not tested cannot be trusted. What does it mean? That, say, if a boy proposes to a girl, please marry me. And the girl asks, why do you want to marry? And the boy says, because no other girl in the city is ready to marry me. Now, that is not the most romantic of proposals, is it? Now, if the girl agrees to marry, then that shows the girl's love for the boy. not the boy's love for the girl. Isn't it? If later on the boy has other options and still chooses to stay with the girl, then that shows his love for the girl. Isn't it? So like that, we often in our life, we turn to God when things go wrong. When we pray, oh God, I have tried everything, nothing has worked, you are my last hope now. So, why am I coming to you, God? Because nothing else is working. Now, God accepts us even at that time also. But the thing is that when things are working for us, at that time, do we say, oh God, I don't need you now, bye bye? How do we say that things are working? This is also God's blessing. So, quite often, when the negative things are happening in our life, those are tests. And those tests are actually meant to refine our devotion. They are meant to deepen our devotion. And for Srila Prabhupada, how it worked, that throughout his life he was trying to share Krishna Bhakti, his work. And then when he went to America, the fact that he went alone and the fact that he was so spectacularly successful in the last decade of his life, where he built 108 temples, wrote over 70 books, went on the 14 world tours, and inspired thousands upon thousands of people to take up bhakti. That made his story even more inspiring, even more extraordinary. So, it was not that Krishna had abandoned him previously. Krishna had a plan for him, but there was a phase when he had to try what works. Tried something in India, tried something in America, tried something else in America, and what worked. So, let's go to the last paragraph over here. Who would like to read that? Yes, please.
Let this
My dear Lord, last paragraph.
my dear Lord, I'm your part
Good word. So, can you see this over here? Here, last part.
my dear Lord, bless me so that my life journey can always remain harmonious part of your unfolding ultimate story.
Beautifully read. Look, a lot of big words over here. You pronounced all of them nicely. Harmonious, unfolding, ultimate. That's great. What is your name?
Madhav,
Madhav. Excellent, Madhav. Yeah. So, what happens is, when we are here at a particular stage in our life, we may feel, why did this happen to me? What happened to me? Oh, this was so terrible, this person did this like this to me, this person did like that to me. But if we move forward in our life, later on we will see that what happened to me actually happened for me. It was through that situation that a fresh door opened in my life, that I moved to a better place. Now, we may not realize it at that time, but we need to push on with that positive faith that this is not the complete story of my life. Krishna has a bigger plan. So when we say, does Krishna have a plan for my life? Yes. But that Krishna's plan does not mean that nothing bad will happen to us. Krishna's plan doesn't mean that sometimes we will not make mistakes. But what Krishna's plan means is that if we keep acting in a mood of service. What does the mood of service mean? That Krishna, this is the situation I am in, I will try to make the best of the situation. So, I'll try to serve you, I'll try to do the best I can in the situation. If we keep doing that, then gradually we'll all come to a better place. So Krishna's plan for our life is not like a scripted role in a play. You have to speak only this dialogue and you have to act only in this way. Krishna doesn't want us to be puppets. Each one of us is an individual. And Krishna has given us free will, not so that he will take it away from us. He wants us to use our free will intelligently. So the key steps of this particular journey, how do we push on during this journey? This is where our service attitude, our seva bhava, that is important. So, service attitude means that Krishna, you must have some plan over you. Ache kichu karja tabe ei anumani. Krishna, you must have some plan. So, let me serve you. Guide me how I can act in this situation. In some areas, it might be very clear for us. This is what I should do. In some areas, it may not be so clear. But it doesn't matter. In this situation, okay, what is the thing that if I do, it will make things worse? What is it that I can do that will make things better in some small way? So, we always have that, if we turn towards Krishna and pray to Krishna and seek guidance. See, some of our steps may make just a small difference. They may not seem to make any big difference. Maybe one relationship has become very bad, and no matter what we do, it just doesn't seem to improve. Then we could become bitter and we could center our whole life on trying to get back at that person. We can decide if this relationship is not working, I won't put so much emotion in it. I'll move on with my life. So service attitude means, Krishna, how can I make things better? How can I act in this situation to make things better? So, when we chant the holy names, when we pray to Krishna, in chanting, the mood is, Krishna, please engage me in your service. What that means is, Krishna, you have a plan, and this plan, you have a role for me. So please, help me to understand my role and help me to play my role. Going back to the cricket match example, somebody might be a batsman, but somebody might be a bowler, but sometimes their role becomes batting. And they may not be an outstanding batsman, but they bat as well as they can. Sometimes somebody might be a batsman, but they might have to bowl. So the overall idea is that you have a particular role, but sometimes you have to play a role based on the situation. So the idea is, this is the situation, what is the best I can do in this situation? So if we have that service attitude, we'll find that through even the darkest phases of life, we will be able to push through. The world around us might be dark, but our service attitude will be like our flashlight. Flashlight shows one step forward. I take one step forward and I see one more step forward. I see one more step forward, and that's how we'll be able to move ahead in our life. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. So our topic was God's plan for my life. And I talked about this in three broad parts. First part is I talked about how there is a fact plus story. How our mind tells stories. And quite often for us, we are affected much more by the story than by the fact. I give the example of Duryodhan. How he was affected by the story that, I am threatened. All that had happened was the Pandavas came over there. So quite often, if we can focus on the story and the fact, then we can respond to the situation. And if you worry too much about the story, then what happens? We will react, and often we will overreact. So in the first part I talked about how our mind is constantly telling stories and understanding the separation between the two. So we discussed about how the subtraction. Subtraction is what? Let's try to see the fact separate from the story. And how do we do that? By understanding that, this might be a story, but this is not the complete story. That I am in a particular situation, but there is more to the situation. I am a part of a particular larger whole, but there is the supreme whole, that is Krishna. So even when something is happening, that this person is treating me negatively, that is the truth, but it is not the complete truth. This is not the full reality. So we are not denying the truth, but the subtraction is, we try to focus on the facts. So the mind will always tell some stories. So the way we can counter the story is by understanding that there is a bigger story. That there is something bigger that is happening. And this is where we talk about the Third part was the addition. Addition is that I will always have a part in Krishna's plan. The fact is that I'm a part of Krishna, and then I'll always have a part in Krishna's plan. So that is the addition. There is Krishna's plan that is happening, and I'll always have a part in the Krishna's plan. And then how do I understand my part over there? That is through seva bhav, through service attitude. Service attitude means how can I make things better over here? How can I play more? A sports player, a cricket player. Okay, in this particular situation, what is the best role I can play for my team? How can I make things better? And if we have this vision, then we will realize with time that what happened to me, I thought, oh, this was so terrible. I'll find out that what happened to me, actually, it happened for me. It was something through which Krishna was acting in my life, and the turbulence that often comes because of the mind story, you counter that and you replace that with Krishna's story. We discussed how this happened for Arjuna. I thought, in fighting Bhishma and Drona, I'm a terrible person. It is, you are not fighting out of greed for a kingdom, you are fighting to establish dharma in the world. And that change story completely changes perspective. So like that, Krishna and Krishna's message can change the story that we tell ourselves. And that way, it can change the perspective with which we approach life. Let's conclude with repeating this prayer once again. My dear Lord, let me remember that my life story is a part of your story. Shri Krishna Bhagwan ki Jai, Prabhupada ki Jai, Gaur Premanand.
Jai.
We have time for questions.
We have time for some questions.
Thank you, Shri. Thank you very much for bringing this topic. And precisely in the current life, I'm going through this situation. And sometimes what happens, Prabhuji, as you told me, in practical life, let me be very precise about this thing. We are fighting for the position of becoming a CEO, and it is red races going on. So the position is like that, Prabhuji. Rivalry and enmity. Possibly, we are more towards enmity at the moment. So my question is that sometimes I feel myself like a Duryodhana, so sometimes I feel myself Arjuna. And in that case, there's two circumstances come. First is that Prabhuji, ki like, I surrender and say Krishna, it is your plan, you decide how should I be reacting. I will not be doing anything, let it go on. And you might be having bigger plan for me. Or I should, like Krishna told Arjuna, you need to fight for your rights. So what should I do in this condition, Prabhuji?
Yeah. So if we are in a competitive environment and there is politics happening and then it's not this rivalry but it's going towards enmity. So how should we act in such a situation? See, there are two distinct things over here. See, the word dharma. The word dharma has many different meanings. One meaning of dharma is responsibility. And the other meaning of dharma is boundary. So now, we can violate dharma. So, dharma, from there, we can go towards adharma in two ways. By violating boundary. We can go towards adharma. But we can go towards adharma by neglecting responsibility also. So let me explain this by example. Say, if parents tell a child, you should do well in studies, and a child is not very good in studies, doesn't like to study, and neglect studies. No, that's your dharma. You should not be neglecting your studies. The parents, you study and you come first in class. And the child comes one day and says, Mommy, Daddy, I come first in class. Wonderful, congratulations. How did you do that? So I worked very hard. I learned computer hacking and I hacked my teacher's computer. And I got all the questions beforehand. I knew all the answers. So that's how I came first. So that's not how I wanted you to come first, isn't it? So it's like we all have particular roles. So not doing our responsibility is adharma. But in doing our responsibility, start violating boundaries. That is also adharma. So the thing is that Duryodhan, wanting a kingdom is not a wrong thing. But in wanting a kingdom, Duryodhan went in the direction of adharma was he had to kill the Pandavas. Now in some ways, Yudhishthira never neglected his responsibility. But the point is that sometimes you have to, if the other person is very aggressive, you have to stand up to that person. If you don't stand up, that other person will walk over you. So Yudhishthira initially trusted that Dhritarashtra is my well-wisher. And that's why when Dhritarashtra called him for a gambling match, he thought this is like a father figure. How can I refuse it? But the fact that Dhritarashtra never intervened, even though the gambling match was unfair, that he had to play not against Duryodhana but against Shakuni. And it just went on and on and on. And Dhritarashtra never stopped. So Dhritarashtra till then had more or less put on the mask of neutrality. But then he started very gleefully asking, has Panchali been won? Has Panchali been won? That's when his mask fell off. So then Yudhishthira recognized that I cannot be naive. You know that although as Dhritarashtra is my elder, I'll respect him. But respect does not mean that I have to obey him all the time. I have to protect my interests. So that's why after the exile got over, at that time Dhritarashtra sent a message to Yudhishthira. He said, ultimately, all grahasthas have to become vanaprasthas. Everybody has to retire. Most people retire at their old age. You are so fortunate that in your youth itself you have become a vanaprastha. Why do you want to become a grahastha? And why do you want a kingdom that you will have to renounce eventually? And why do you want to fight for a kingdom? Just stay where you are, stay peacefully. So now Duryodhana did not fall for this. He said, that there is a time and place for everything. And we have a duty to ancestors, we have to beget children, we have to serve our citizens. And for that we need a kingdom. And I never mentioned anything about a war. It was in your presence that arrangement was made, that when we finish our exile, we'll get our kingdom back. So I'm only asking you to honor the agreement that you had made. So he did not think that, he stood up for his interests. So the point is, we avoid both extremes. That if we are in a particular place, if we are playing a particular game, we have to know both the rules of the game and we have to know the tricks of the game. So now there's a difference between trick and cheating. Like a fast bowler may come very fast and then bowl a very slow ball. That's not cheating. That's a trick. So in every place there are tricks. And we need to know the tricks of the tricks. So if we are playing a particular game, we need to be able to play that game well. And if sometimes that requires doing things which you would normally not do, that is okay. But then we all have to have a sense of boundaries. That, no, okay, I want this promotion. And I want to become a CEO. And this is what I'm ready to do for this. But this is not what I'm going to do. We also have to have some boundaries. That, say for example, in office there is politics. You may put some rumor about that person or speak something about this person. All those things, not pleasant, but they happen. But even in ordinary among people who may not be really spiritually minded, there are boundaries. I may spread some rumor about you, but I'm not going to spread some rumor about your wife or your daughter or something like that. That's a boundary that's not pre-crossed. So like that, when we are striving for something, we may have to fight. But we also need to be clear about our boundaries. What am I not going to do? So what am I ready to do? That's my responsibility. But what I am not ready to do, because sticking to our responsibility will build our character. But giving up our boundary can actually break our character. he'll ruin our character. So that's why in between these two is what we need to do. Yeah, both we respect the boundary and we respect the responsibility also. So how exactly we will do that? That each one of us has to find out according to our time, place, circumstance. But so sometimes we accept this is the situation and this is your plan, I'll accept it. But sometimes you have to fight. There are two ways of surrendering. Draupadi surrendered by raising her hands. Krishna, I depend on you completely. Now Krishna told Arjuna to surrender at the end of the Gita. Arjuna surrendered. Arjuna's surrender was not raising both his arms. Arjuna's surrender was raising his arms, raising his weapons. He is ready to fight. So it depends on time, place, circumstance, which mode of surrender we take. Krishna, I accept whatever you do, or I accept your will, or I accept the responsibility to do your will. Does that answer your question? Thank
The
you.
problem is that Prabhuji, Krishna doesn't talk to me.
No, but significantly, see, Krishna was not micro-controlling Arjuna also. It is not that before every arrow Arjuna shot, Arjuna was thinking, Krishna, should I shoot this arrow? No, if you look at after Arjuna surrendered to Krishna, Arjuna was still his own person. And yes, there are major decisions where Krishna intervened and gave some guidance or told him don't do this or do this. But overall, Arjuna was making his decisions. So it is not that Krishna wanted to create a culture of chronic dependence on him. See, the point is that if Krishna had wanted to make Arjuna dependent on him, Krishna didn't even have to speak the full Bhagavad Gita. Krishna could have just told Arjuna in 6 words, I am God, obey me, fight. Bhagavad Gita, Sampurna. The what that Krishna spoke, the whole philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita was to equip Arjuna to think with philosophical and ethical reasoning. So that even when Krishna would not be there, Arjuna would be able to make decisions. So yes, none of us can have a guarantee that with the decisions we make will always be the right decisions. But if we learn to practice bhakti and learn to develop our sattva guna, we will make better decisions. Not always right decisions, but the chances of making right decisions will increase. And also, if a decision turns out to be wrong, we will have the non-attachment to accept that. Okay, this turned out to be wrong, let me go to course correction. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, there are a lot of, I'll try to keep it short. Yes, Mother. Again, Mother.
Hare Krishna,
Just see if the mic is on.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Dhanwad Pranam, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, sometimes, we do take the right decisions, but we're unable to, take action on those decisions. For example, I may think I have to do this, I may want to do it, but because of certain XYZ reason, or because of another person saying, no, you can't do this, I don't do it. So then that leads to frustration, and then, I may have to reconcile with the fact that, okay, this is what Krishna wanted for me.
So when you take a decision, it's very good to have an approach of a range. Range means that there could be an aspirational level at the pace I would like to work on and how much I would like to do. But we can also have a non-negotiable level. This is the basic minimum I will do. So we don't have to make it like digital logic, I will do it or I won't do it. So for example, if you decide, okay, I want to study the Bhagavad Gita regularly, but then I have so many other responsibilities and so many other things keep coming, I can't do it. So you may decide, okay, I would like to read 1 hour every day and I can complete the whole Bhagavad Gita in say 6 months. But if you can't read 1 hour every day, I may decide I'll read 10 minutes every day. So try to have a range approach rather than thinking of 1 or 0. If I can't do this much, I'll at least do this much. And that way, even we will keep moving forward. And if Krishna sees that we are sincere in moving forward, then Krishna will also help us find time, help us rearrange our life. So generally when we take decisions, it is also important that we don't devalue the power of small steps. That is one of the tendencies of the mind in Rajoguna. Either when I do something, I want to do something sensational. If I can't do something sensational, then why do anything at all? No, let's take small steps. we will make significant progress over a period of time by that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the
Yes,
practice.
please.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much. Lovely. It was very, I mean, I really learned so many things. Thank you so much for that. My question is how to deal with the family members who are physically hurting, emotionally causing emotional turmoil. Like for example, my father itself, at his at this age also, like he's shouting, abusing, and making a very bad things in home, scolding mother. So how to deal with that situation?
So difficult situations. So if our family member is acting in a way that is hurtful. See, there are two distinct things. In 12.15 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yasman no dujate loko, lokan no dujate chaya. One who does not agitate others and one who is not agitated by others. Such a person is dear to me, Krishna says. So now, at one level, we can't control other people's behavior. So if we consider our life, the people we have in our life, the range of activities we do in our life, there are some things which give us strength, which give us energy, and some things which drain our energy, which require energy. So we will have both kinds of people in our life. Some people bring happiness wherever they go, and some people bring happiness whenever they go. So now, peculiarly speaking, the same person might fall in these two different categories for different people, isn't it? And we ourselves might fall in different categories at different times also. The thing is that we cannot avoid the people who drain our energy. If we are in a blood relationship or we are in an obligation, no, we cannot avoid that. But we have to make sure that we have relationships and activities that replenish our energy. And when we replenish that energy, then we will be able to deal with that. So especially in a hierarchical relationship, we can't really correct others or stop others if they are in a higher position in the hierarchy. So at one level, make sure that we are doing the activity that replenish ourselves, by which we will be able to bear that. That is important. So that means these activities are very important for us. So it could be our mantra chanting, it could be our satsang, it could be being with the people who love us and trust us and with whom we actually feel refreshed. So that's one thing. The second thing is that in every relationship, there needs to be some boundaries. Now, the boundaries become difficult when in a close family member. But the boundaries could be physical boundaries could be emotional boundaries. There could be various ways in which boundaries can be set. That means in some cases, the way we set a boundary is just by lowering our expectations. See, in an interaction, what hurts is not just the action of the other person. So it is also the expectation we have of the other person. So again, when I talk about this fact and story, this is like, the fact is, okay, a particular family member is behaving in a very unpleasant, disagreeable way. But along with that, there is a story. Story is, this is how a father should be, this is how a brother should be, this is how a spouse should be. That story is there in our mind. And then we said, oh, my life is so unfortunate, this is so terrible, this person is so terrible, my life is so terrible. That story that is there, that story is what often overwhelms us. So now creating some boundaries means that to the extent we have expectation from that person, that they will behave in a different way. To the extent we are like feeding that story, and the story doesn't turn out rightly, it just makes us feel bad. So we understand that that people who are difficult may also be in difficulty. Often it's hurt people who hurt people. Now that doesn't necessarily excuse what they are doing, but still, it is that quite often they may also be frustrated because of something, they may also be in pain of something. We can pray to Krishna that whatever their pain, that go away. Maybe they can find some people at their age or their level who can guide them and who can change. But overall, just lowering our expectation and understanding that maybe this is a part of my purificatory process. Let's see what happens in our life. Again, another way of looking at it is, in some relationships, what happens is we give a little and we get a lot. There are people in our childhood when we are growing up, maybe there's a teacher who liked us very much, or there's a person who, maybe a popular kid, befriended us, and then that thing might become easy for us. And there are also people for whom we do a lot and we get very little bit. So in the big picture, this balances out. In the short picture, it seems that this person is treating me so badly. This person is like this. So sometimes it's good to look at, we also, maybe not at this particular point right now, but we can look in our lives that there were phases when we were treated kindly also. And then what happens is, it's not just the problem, but from that problem, we say life is unfair. And life is unfair to me and especially to me. Or sometimes the mind goes for the life is unfair, not only especially to me, but exclusively to me. You said it like no one else. That becomes completely unbearable. So I think that if you look at times when, so we could say this is some positive karma phase for us, where we are surrounded with people who are better for us than what we are doing for them. And this is a negative karma phase for us. So these are phases, they will come and they will go. That doesn't mean I'm saying it's going to be easy, but they will come and they will go. So don't overreact. Tam Satiksha Swabharata. We pray to Krishna. Krishna will give that strength that we don't get disturbed by them so much, and then we don't do things that further disturb them and escalate the situation. One last question. Yes, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for a wonderful class. Thank you so much for a wonderful class. I'll ask very quickly. So I can understand how we are all part of Krishna's plan, but there are some times in life we have to make choices. And there can be, if there is a good choice and a bad choice, then we opt for a good choice, and we can understand that that must be Krishna's plan. But sometimes, if there are two good choices, or on the contrary, two bad choices, and we have to make that, so does that mean that there are two different plans, and based on our choice, one of them we become part of, or the other, or is it that choice itself is a test within the plan, or how will that work?
So it is a part of Krishna's plan that we can't know Krishna's plan. Can't know for sure. What I mean by that is, say, I have a friend who is in the devotee from another country who is a part of a very well-known spy agency, espionage. So he's not a part. His brother is a part of that. Just telling me how they work if they have some very big mission. They have their spies going to another country. So every spy knows their role, but nobody knows the full plan. Because if that spy is caught, then the enemy may torture, and then the whole plan may get disrupted. So it is by plan that no one knows the plan. So now in that case there's a specific purpose, but in Krishna's case, it is that the world is so complicated that we just don't have enough brain substance to actually figure out all the variables that happen in the world. So broadly speaking, that Krishna's plan is something like the Ganga moving towards the ocean from a mountain. Now the Ganga is fixed in purpose, but it is not fixed in path. Sometimes there's a blockage, then the Ganga may move slightly differently and come to the ocean. If you look at the Brahmaputra river, it actually goes almost 90 degrees. It goes from the Himalayas all the way down, then it turns around, then it comes down. So the Krishna's plan is not a fixed path, it's a fixed direction. ultimately, Krishna wants us to grow in wisdom, grow in love, grow in character, grow in devotion. And the specific choices are important, but they are not the most important. Now, no bad choice can throw us out of Krishna's plan. So, yes, if we make, so now, sometimes some situations are there where there is no good choice. And, or there are too many good choices, only we can't choose. So then, it's like there's a matter of individual discretion. We make the best out of what we can. And it is not that Krishna throws us out of his plan. We learn with experience. And in one sense, it's like GPS. What is GPS? That is God's positioning system. So, suppose GPS tells us turn right and we turn left. What does GPS do? You disobeyed me, get lost. Stay lost forever. No, GPS doesn't do that. GPS reroutes and helps us come back on track. So like that, even if we take a wrong turn, Krishna has got the whole territory mapped out. Sometimes some areas where there is GPS has no coverage only. But there is no area where Krishna has no coverage. So there is no mistake, no wrong turn so bad that Krishna cannot get us back. So the idea is that we shouldn't, it's like every choice that we make, the choice, we don't want to trivialize the choice. Trivialize means, hey, even if I make a mistake, no problem, it's all Krishna's plan. Not like that. Because every wrong turn we take, it is going to have a cost. It take that much more time, that much more fuel, that much more effort. So we don't want to trivialize the choice, but we don't want to catastrophize the choice also. Oh, this wrong choice I make, if I do this, my life will be ruined. No, it's nothing like that. So it's like basically we contextualize the choice. Contextualize means I have to understand the context and I say if this is a very important choice, let me cross check, double check, triple check if I can. The small choice, I don't have to overthink it. Let me just do what I can in the situation. So that way we move ahead in life. And even if we take a wrong turn, Krishna will get us back on track. So thank you very much. The Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Gaur Premanand.